Hey there, beautiful people. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from today. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button before we dive into this heartwarming story. Your support means everything and helps us bring more amazing content like this to you. Now, let's get into it. Marry me, Miss Chenis, the little boy began. Sorry, will you marry me, Miss Chenis? He corrected himself quickly. Chenis Willows was hiding behind an old counter, trying to escape her abusive father and greedy brother when a little boy stepped out from behind the shelves and asked her to marry him. She laughed softly, ruffling his hair. If I marry you, she joked, will you make the bad guys leave me alone? His face lit up instantly. Yes, he said proudly. My daddy has a lot of money. Chenis agreed on a whim, thinking it was nothing more than a child's joke, unaware that this single careless promise would drag her straight into the world of the most feared, most powerful trillionaire tycoon Korea had ever known. Chenis Willows had been waiting tables in the small Gangnam restaurant in Seoul like she always did when she heard a low, familiar growl from outside. She knew that sound. It belonged to her abusive father and her greedy brother, people who only remembered she existed when they needed money. Chenis already knew how this would end. This wasn't the first time they had come looking for her. They would demand her paycheck. She would try to hide. They would cause a scene, wreck the place, and eventually she would be forced to come out and hand over what she'd earned. Lately, they'd started sniffing her out, as they liked to call it, finding her no matter where she hid. She tucked herself behind an old counter, planning how she would split the money and budget her share for herself. She pressed her back harder against the dusty underside, knees drawn to her chest, breath shallow. Outside the swinging kitchen doors, the growl came again. Her father's voice was thick with liquor, even at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Where's my girl at? Chenis, don't make me come in there and drag you out. Her brother's laugh followed, mean and eager. She's probably hiding again. Always playing games. Chenis squeezed her eyes shut. 20 minutes. That was all she needed. 20 minutes for them to get bored, for the manager to threaten police, for them to slink away with whatever cash they could shake out of the till instead of her tips. She had 63,000 Korean wons folded inside her sock, which was barely enough for rent and Jen's medicine next door, but it was hers. They weren't taking it today. A soft rustle came from behind the counter between two shelves of forgotten takeout containers. Her heart jumped. Had they found her already? But instead of her father's sneer or her brother's greedy grin, an adorable little boy peeked out at her. He looked no older than 6 or 7. She blinked in surprise, then exhaled. She pressed a finger to her lips. Hey there, little boy. You scared me. The boy stared back at her, equally startled. Then his eyes widened. He blinked at her. Wow, he breathed. You're so beautiful. You look like a damsel from one of my books. What's your name? She chuckled softly. Thank you. I'm Chenis. I'm G-Minute, he replied proudly. What are you hiding from, G-Minute? She asked. My dad, he said with a pout. He wants to take me to the doctor again. I don't like doctors. Her smile faltered as pity bloomed in her chest. She wondered what illness such a small boy might be dealing with. And you? He asked curiously. You're dressed like the waitresses, but you're not working. Who are you hiding from? She blinked, surprised by how sharp he was. I'm hiding from bad guys, she said lightly. Very bad guys. Bad guys, he repeated, his smile fading. How can anyone want to hurt a damsel like you? Where are they? She almost laughed at how serious he sounded, like he was ready to charge into battle. They're in the restaurant, she said gently. You just can't see them from here. I can fight them for you, he declared. She bit back a laugh. You can't even handle injections, yet you want to fight bad guys. I'm strong. He puffed up, offended. I take taekwondo sometimes. I can definitely fight. Chenis smiled at his tiny bravado. There was something painfully sincere in his eyes. Protective despite his size. "That's very brave," she whispered. "But some bad guys are too big to fight with fists." He frowned, thinking hard, his brows knitting together. Then his face lit up like he'd solved the hardest puzzle in the world. "Then you need protection," he said seriously. "Protection," she echoed. "Yes," he nodded firmly. "Like in my storybooks, the princess always has a knight. Or a prince. Or a rich husband." She covered her mouth to stifle her laughter. "A rich husband, who?" "Yes." He puffed out his narrow chest. "If you marry someone rich, the bad guys won't touch you. Everyone's scared of rich people." She leaned in, playing along because it was the sweetest thing she'd heard in months. "So, where do I find one of those?" He gasped as if the answer was obvious. "Me." She blinked. "You?" He straightened his tiny shoulders and puffed out his chest like a hero preparing for battle. Then very seriously, very earnestly, he said, "Marry me, Miss Chenis." He paused, then quickly corrected himself. "Sorry, I mean, will you marry me, Miss Chenis?" She laughed softly, ruffling his hair. "Why should I marry you, little boy?" G-Minute thought hard. "I have good looks. My genes are excellent, I promise. If you see my dad," he stopped abruptly, then shook his head. He couldn't let her meet his father. She might fall for him instead. "Don't worry about Daddy," he said firmly. "Marry me instead. Daddy is ugly. I got my good looks from my grandma." Chenis wanted to burst out laughing, but that would only give her away. She patted his head gently and smiled. "Then I'll marry you and you'll save me. Deal?" "Deal," he exclaimed proudly. "My daddy has a lot of money. Like, a lot of money. You don't have to worry." He hooked his tiny pinky around hers with utmost solemnity. That was when the kitchen door banged open. Chenis tensed immediately. But it wasn't her father. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit stepped inside, face carved from marble and authority. Two more men in similar suits flanked him like shadows. The restaurant noise died instantly. Chenis' father's voice cut off mid-rant. G-Minute squeaked and grabbed Chenis' hand. "That's Daddy." Chenis' stomach dropped. The man, Song Woo Bin, though she didn't know his name yet, swept cold eyes across the storage area. When they landed on G-Minute, something flickered in them. Relief, anger, both. "G-Minute," he said, voice low and controlled. "What are you doing back here?" G-Minute popped up like a jack-in-the-box, dragging Chenis with him. "Daddy, this is Chenis. She's my fiancée." The word landed like a grenade. Woo Bin's gaze snapped to Chenis. She felt it like a physical weight, assessing, unreadable, dangerous. Chenis' father recovered first. "Who the hell are you?" "This is family business." Woo Bin didn't even glance at him. To one of his men, he said quietly, "Remove them." The bodyguards moved. Her father lunged. "Hey, you can't just," a hand clamped on his arm. He yelped. Her brother tried to step forward. Another bodyguard blocked him without a word. Woo Bin finally looked at Chenis again. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, throat too tight to speak. G-Minute tugged her sleeve. "See, I told you, rich people make bad guys go away." Woo Bin's mouth twitched, almost a smile gone in an instant. He extended a hand toward her, not demanding, offering. "Come. It's safer outside." Chenis hesitated. Her father was still cursing, now being marched toward the front door. The manager hovered nearby, pale and silent. G-Minute squeezed her fingers. "Please, you promised." She looked down at the boy, small, earnest, brave in a way she hadn't been in years. Then she looked at the man who could make entire rooms go quiet with a glance. She took his hand. His skin was warm. His grip was steady. They stepped out the back door into the alley. A long black limousine waited, engine purring. The driver opened the rear door without a word. G-Minute scrambled in first, bouncing on the leather seat. "Come on, Chinis. It's really comfy." She slid in beside him, heart hammering. Wu Bin followed, settling across from them. The door closed with a soft, expensive click. Silence stretched. G-Minute broke it. "Daddy, Chinis is in trouble. Bad guys are after her. I asked her to marry me so you can protect her, like in my books." Wu Bin's gaze flicked to Chinis' wrist where a fresh purple bruise bloomed beneath the edge of her uniform sleeve. He didn't comment on it. Instead, he asked, "Where do you live?" She gave the address automatically, a run-down apartment block 20 minutes away by subway. He nodded to the driver. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. G-Minute leaned against her side. "You're safe now," he whispered. Chinis looked at the boy, then at the man watching her with those unreadable eyes. She didn't feel safe. She felt like she'd just stepped off the edge of her old life and into something much bigger and far more dangerous. Wu Bin's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, expression hardening. "Mother," he muttered under his breath, then silenced it. Chinis caught the name on the caller ID before it disappeared. Song Mina. Even someone who'd only lived in Seoul for 3 years knew that name. She was Korea's most feared matriarch. The woman who'd built an empire and crushed anyone who threatened it, including, rumor said, her own son when he dared to marry beneath her standards. G-Minute yawned, head drooping against Chinis' shoulder. Wu Bin watched them both for a long moment. Then quietly, he said, "You don't have to be afraid of me." Chinis met his gaze. "I'm not afraid of you," she lied. But she wasn't lying when she added, softer, "I'm afraid of what happens when rich people decide they're done helping." Wu Bin's expression didn't change. But something shifted in his eyes. "I don't make promises I don't keep," he said. The car glided through Gangnam's glittering streets. Chinis held Ji-Min's small hand and tried not to think about how easily this stranger had just dismantled the 2 people who'd terrorized her for years. Tried not to think about the little boy who just jokingly, maybe not so jokingly, married her to the richest, most feared man in Korea. Tried not to wonder what price she'd eventually pay for this one careless deal. Chinis stared at the cracked ceiling of her one-room apartment, the single bulb flickering like it was as tired as she was. Her phone sat silent on the mattress beside her. There were no new threats from her father, no angry texts from her brother, just quiet, too quiet. She kept replaying the limo ride, the soft leather seats. G-Minute falling asleep against her shoulder. Tiny snores puffing against her neck. Wu Bin's voice, calm and final, telling the driver to take a longer route so the boy wouldn't wake up too soon. The way he'd looked at her when she'd said she was afraid of what happened when rich people got bored of helping. "I don't make promises I don't keep." She'd wanted to believe him. God, she'd wanted to, but wanting things had never done her any good. She rolled onto her side, wincing at the bruise on her ribs, old but still tender. Tomorrow was another shift, another chance to save enough to disappear again. Maybe Busan this time, or back to the States if she could scrape together the visa fees. A sharp knock rattled the thin door. Her heart lurched. She sat up slowly, listening. Another knock, harder. "Chinis, open up. We know you're in there." Her brother's voice, slurred, impatient. She didn't answer, didn't move. The door handle rattled. Then a fist pounded. "You think you can hide behind some fancy car? We saw you get in with that rich bastard. You owe us, girl. You owe us big." Chinis pressed her back to the wall, pulse roaring in her ears. She'd changed the locks twice in the last year. They still found ways in. A new voice, her father's, lower, meaner. "You have 2 choices. Open the door or we break it down and take what's ours anyway. Your manager already told us your shift tomorrow. We'll be waiting." Silence stretched, then footsteps retreating. Chinis exhaled, shaky. She waited 10 full minutes before creeping to the peephole. The hallway was empty. She slid down the door, knees to chest, and let the tears come. Quiet, furious ones. She hated crying, hated how small it made her feel. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the message. This is Woo Bin. G-Minute won't stop asking about you. He's convinced you're his fiancé now. He's also convinced you're in danger. Are you? She stared at the screen. Another message followed almost immediately. Where are you? She typed back before she could overthink it. Home. They came again. Just left. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Stay inside. I'm sending someone. She hit send again, then added. I don't need rescuing. The reply came faster this time. You don't have to accept help. But G-Minute is asking for you. He's scared you'll disappear like his mother did. He's 6. He doesn't understand pride. Chinis closed her eyes. Damn him. Damn the little boy. Damn herself for caring. Fine, she typed. But just to see him, not for you. The response was a single address somewhere in Hanam-dong, the most expensive part of Seoul. And a time, 1 hour. She looked down at her wrinkled uniform, her scuffed sneakers. Then she stood. An hour later, she stepped out of a black sedan, different driver, same silent efficiency, in front of a glass and steel mansion that looked more like a modern fortress than a home. Security cameras tracked her every step. A woman in a crisp uniform opened the door before she could knock. Miss Willows, this way, please. The foyer alone could have swallowed her entire apartment. G-Minute came running before she'd taken 5 steps, arms wide, grin brighter than the chandelier overhead. Chinis! You came. I knew you would. She dropped to her knees and hugged him back, surprised by how fiercely she wanted to. Hey, brave knight. Missed me already? He nodded against her shoulder. Daddy said you had bad guys again. I told him we have to protect you forever now. Chinis looked up. Woo Bin stood at the top of the curved staircase, sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight. G-Minute tugged her hand. Come see my room. I drew our wedding. Woo Bin descended slowly. G-Minute, let her breathe. The boy pouted but obeyed, scampering ahead. Woo Bin stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive, cedar and smoke. You're hurt, he said quietly, eyes on the fresh mark on her forearm where her brother had grabbed her earlier. It's nothing. It's not nothing. She lifted her chin. I've handled worse. I know. His voice softened. That's what worries me. Ji-Min's voice echoed from down the hall. Chinis, hurry. Woo Bin exhaled. He's attached. More than I expected. He's a sweet kid. He's sick, Woo Bin said bluntly. Hyperplastic left heart syndrome. He's been on the transplant list for 8 months. Doctors say it's urgent now. He doesn't have much time left if we don't find a match soon. Chinis felt the floor tilt. That's why he hates doctors, she whispered. Woo Bin nodded once. He thinks if he's strong enough, brave enough, he won't need them. But you make him feel brave. She looked away, throat tight. I can't stay here, she said. I have a life, a job. Rent? You won't have a job if your family keeps showing up and trashing the place. You won't have rent if they keep taking your paychecks. She glared at him. So what? You want to buy me off? I want to protect my son's heart, literally and figuratively. He stepped closer. Stay here, in the guest wing. No strings. You visit G-Minute whenever you want. Keep him smiling. In return, my security team handles your family. Permanently. Permanently, she echoed. They won't touch you again. Ever. She searched his face. No pity, no charm, just cold certainty. And when G-Minute gets his heart? When he doesn't need me anymore? Woo Bin didn't flinch. Then you walk away with whatever you need to start over. No questions. G-Minute appeared at the end of the hall, holding up a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures under a giant heart. Look! It's us after the wedding. Cheenis' chest ached. She looked back at Woo Bin. One condition, she said. He raised a brow. I'm not your charity case. I work. I pay my own way. Even if it's just helping in the kitchen or reading to G-Minute. I don't take handouts. For the first time, something like respect flickered in his eyes. Deal. He extended his hand. She took it. His grip was warm again. Steady. G-Minute squealed and ran to them, throwing his arms around both their legs. Family hug. Cheenis laughed. Woo Bin didn't. But he didn't pull away either. Later, Cheenis moved into the guest room in the Song mansion. She'd actually laughed, when the housekeeper showed her the walk-in closet already stocked with clothes in her size. She had never felt this privileged. Mr. Song said you might prefer not to wear your uniform all the time, the woman had explained with a polite bow. Cheenis had stared at the rows of simple dresses, soft sweaters, jeans that actually fit her curves. No tags, no receipts, just quiet, expensive thoughtfulness. She hated how much she liked it. 3 days, and she found a rhythm. Mornings, breakfast with G-Minute in the sunlit kitchen. He insisted on sitting beside her, feet swinging under the table, telling her elaborate stories about knights and dragons while she cut his pancakes into perfect bites. Afternoons, she helped in the mansion's small library, reading aloud from his favorite picture books or playing board games that ended with him declaring her the best princess ever. Evenings, she retreated to her suite, trying not to notice how Woo Bin's gaze lingered whenever their paths crossed in the hallways. He was always working, always moving, phone to ear, laptop open, bodyguards trailing like shadows. But when G-Minute called for him, he came immediately, without hesitation. Tonight, the house was quiet. G-Minute had fallen asleep early after a long day of tests at the hospital. Cheenis couldn't sleep. She padded barefoot down to the kitchen at 1:17 a.m., craving tea in silence. Woo Bin was already there. He stood at the island in a black t-shirt and sweatpants, hair slightly mussed, sleeves pushed up to reveal corded forearms. A tablet glowed in front of him, but his eyes were on the dark window, unfocused. He didn't startle when she entered. Just glanced over. Couldn't sleep either. She shook her head, moving to the kettle. G-Min's fever earlier scared me, even if it was just from the stress of the appointment. Woo Bin exhaled. He's tougher than he looks. So are you. The words slipped out before she could catch them. He turned fully toward her. The kitchen island separated them, but the space suddenly felt smaller. Cheenis busied herself with the tea. I didn't mean to pry. You carry it all. The company, him, the waiting. I don't know how you don't break. I break, he said quietly. I just do it where no one sees. She looked up. His gaze held hers, raw, unguarded for once. My ex-wife left when the diagnosis came, he continued, voice low. She said she couldn't handle watching him die. That it would destroy her, so she destroyed us instead. Cheenis' fingers tightened around the mug. I built everything after that, he said. The empire, the walls, the distance. And then this little boy with your smile walks into my son's life and suddenly everything feels fragile again. Her breath caught. I don't have that kind of power. You do. He stepped around the island. Close now. Not touching, but near enough she could feel the heat radiating from him. You make him laugh. You make him forget the needles for 5 minutes. You make me remember what it feels like to want something that isn't control. Silence stretched between them, thick, electric. Chinis swallowed. I'm just a waitress hiding from her own mess. You're more than that. His voice dropped. And you know it. She set the mug down before her hands could shake. He reached out, slow, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a stray curl from her cheek. His thumb lingered against her skin. The touch was barely there. It burned. She leaned into it, just a fraction. His eyes darkened. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. Sharp, insistent. He cursed under his breath, glanced at the screen. Ji-min's monitor alarm, he said, already moving. They ran up the stairs, down the hall, into Ji-min's room. The boy was curled on his side, face flushed, breathing shallow and fast. The heart monitor beeped erratically. Woo Bin scooped him up without hesitation. I've got you, buddy. Ji-min whimpered. Daddy, it hurts. Chinis was already at the bedside table, grabbing the emergency oxygen mask the nurses had taught her to use during her first overnight stay. She fitted it gently over Ji-min's face while Woo Bin carried him toward the door. Car's ready, one of the night security men said from the hallway. They rode in silence to the private hospital wing Woo Bin had practically funded. Doctors swarmed the moment they arrived. Chinis stood in the waiting area, arms wrapped around herself, watching through the glass as Woo Bin held Ji-min's hand while machines beeped and voices murmured. An hour later, the lead cardiologist emerged. Fever spiked from infection, he said. We've got it under control with antibiotics, but the pressure on his heart is increasing. The transplant window is narrowing. We need a match soon. Woo Bin's jaw clenched. How soon? Weeks. Maybe less. Chinis felt the floor shift again. When they returned to the mansion at dawn, Ji-min was asleep in Woo Bin's arms, and 4-line taped to his small hand. Woo Bin carried him to bed, then turned to Chinis in the hallway. Thank you, he said. Simple, sincere. She nodded, throat too tight for words. He hesitated. There's something else. She waited. The media caught wind of you being here. Photos from the restaurant. Rumors about a mystery woman in the Song household. He rubbed the back of his neck. My mother is displeased. Chinis' stomach twisted. Madam Song. She wants you gone. Says you're a distraction. A liability. His eyes met hers. She's wrong. Chinis lifted her chin. I'm not leaving Ji-min. I know. He stepped closer. But the rumors are growing. If we don't control the narrative, it could hurt him, stress, publicity, questions about his health. People will dig into your past, your family. She felt sick. They already are. He nodded. I have a proposal. She raised a brow. A temporary engagement. Public announcement. We say it's real. It shuts down the gossip. Protects your reputation. Gives Ji-min stability. When the transplant happens, when he's safe, we can quietly end it. Chinis stared at him. Fake, she echoed. Fake, he confirmed. But his voice was rougher than before. Unless... He didn't finish. She searched his face, saw the exhaustion, the fear, the flicker of something deeper. Her own heart was pounding too hard. I need to think, she whispered. He nodded once. Take your time. But as he turned to leave, she caught his wrist. He froze. She didn't let go. When this is over, she said softly. Promise me one thing. Anything. Don't let him forget me. Woo Bin looked down at where her fingers wrapped around his arm. I don't think that's possible, he murmured. Then he leaned in, slow, careful, and pressed his forehead to hers for 1 heartbeat. 2. 3. Neither of them moved. The announcement came at a press conference nobody expected. Richest stood beside Woo Bin on a sleek stage in the Song Group headquarters. Lights hot on her skin, cameras flashing like gunfire. She wore a simple navy dress from the closet he'd stocked. Elegant, understated, nothing flashy. Her hand rested lightly in the crook of his elbow. His arm felt like steel beneath the tailored suit. G-Minute sat in the front row between two nannies, wearing a tiny tuxedo, clapping wildly when the moderator introduced them. Mr. Song Woo Bin and Miss Richest Willows are pleased to confirm their engagement, the spokesperson read from the prepared statement. This is a private matter made public due to recent speculation. They ask for privacy during this joyful time, especially as they focus on the health of their son. The word landed heavier than the ring Woo Bin had slipped onto her finger that morning. A simple platinum band with a single emerald, G-Min's birthstone. No diamond, no show, just quiet permanence. She hadn't taken it off. The questions came fast after. How did you meet? When's the wedding? Is this related to the child's medical condition? Woo Bin answered smoothly, voice calm and clipped. Richest smiled when prompted, said we're very happy when her turn came, and let him feel the rest. By the end, she felt like she'd run a marathon in heels. Backstage, G-Minute launched himself at her legs. You looked like a real princess. She scooped him up, burying her face in his hair to hide the tremor in her smile. Only because my knight was watching. Woo Bin watched them both, expression unreadable. That night, the tabloids exploded. Headlines screamed, trillionaire CEO engaged to mystery black waitress. Photos of her at the restaurant. Grainy shots of her entering the mansion. Even an old one from her US high school yearbook surfaced. Comment sections filled with everything from congratulations to venom, gold digger, scandal, race baiting, clickbait. Richest scrolled through it all on her phone in the guest suite, stomach churning, until Woo Bin appeared in the doorway. Stop looking, he said quietly. I can't. It's everywhere. He crossed the room, took the phone from her hand, and set it face down on the nightstand. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, close but not touching. They'll move on to the next story in 48 hours. And until then? Until then, we protect what matters. He nodded toward G-Min's room down the hall. He's sleeping better tonight. No fever, no nightmares, because he believes this is real. Richest looked at the ring on her finger. It feels real. Woo Bin's gaze dropped to her hand, then lifted to her face. Does that scare you? Everything about this scares me. He reached out, traced the edge of the emerald with his thumb. The touch was light, reverent. Then let me be the one who isn't afraid, he murmured. She met his eyes. The air between them thickened. He leaned in first, slow enough she could stop him. She didn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative, like they were both testing whether the world would crack open. It didn't. It caught fire instead. His hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her closer. She slid her fingers into his hair, tugging just enough to make him groan low in his throat. The kiss deepened. Hungry, desperate. Years of restraint unraveling in seconds. When they broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, he whispered against her mouth. This wasn't supposed to happen. I know. But it did. She nodded once. They didn't speak again that night. They didn't need to. The next morning brought hell. Her phone rang at 7:03 a.m. Her brother's number. She answered on the third ring. You think you're somebody now, he snarled. Engaged to the big man? You owe us, Richest. You owe us for every year you lived off us. I never lived off you, she said flatly. I sent money home until you started gambling it away. Doesn't matter. We're filing a lawsuit. Emotional distress. Abandonment. You're rich now. Pay up or we drag your name through every court in Seoul. She laughed, cold, tired. Try it. She hung up. By noon, the lawsuit papers arrived via courier, delivered to the mansion gates with a photographer in tow. Woo Bin's legal team descended like wolves. They dismantled the claim in 48 hours. Affidavits proving years of abuse and financial exploitation. Police reports from the states she'd never told anyone about. Bank records showing every dollar she'd sent home. The case was thrown out before it reached a judge, but the damage was done. Chyna sat on the garden bench that evening, knees drawn up, staring at the koi pond while G-Minute napped inside. The emerald ring felt heavier than it should. Woo Bin found her there. He didn't sit, just stood behind her, hands in his pockets. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For bringing you into this circus." She shook her head. "I chose this. For him." He stepped around the bench, crouched so they were eye level. "And for you?" She looked at him, really looked, saw the lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the way his shoulders carried the weight of too many decisions. "I don't know how to want things for myself anymore," she admitted. He took her hands. "Then let me show you." The charity gala was 2 nights later. Black tie, glittering, the kind of event where deals worth billions were made over champagne. Chyna wore emerald silk that matched her ring, the dress hugging every curve. Heads turned when she entered on Woo Bin's arm. Whispers followed. An older woman in pearls sneered, loud enough to carry. "She's bold, I'll give her that. But taste? Questionable." Woo Bin stopped walking. Turned. The room quieted. "She is my fiancée," he said, voice carrying without effort. "Insult her again and you'll find your family's investments in Song Group re-evaluated by morning." The woman paled. He led Chyna to the dance floor without another word. The orchestra played something slow and aching. He pulled her close, chest to chest, hand low on her back. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. "Yes, I did." They moved together, easy, instinctive. Her head rested against his shoulder. His thumb traced slow circles on her spine. "I love this," she whispered. "The pretending." He tilted her chin up. "It stopped being pretend the moment you kiss me back." Her breath hitched. Around them, Seoul's elite watched. He didn't care. Neither did she. Later, in the quiet of the car ride home, G-Minute asleep between them, clutching a drawing of the 3 of them dancing, Woo Bin leaned across the boy and kissed her temple. "Stay," he said. "Not a question." She turned her face into his neck. "I'm already here." But the next morning brought new shadows. Madame Song arrived unannounced. She swept into the foyer like winter itself. Perfectly coiffed, steel eyes like knives. "Woo Bin," she said coolly. "A word." "Alone." He didn't move. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Chyna." Madame Song's gaze slid to her, disdainful, assessing. "Very well." She pulled an envelope from her purse and dropped it on the marble table. "Your fiancé's debts. Loan sharks. Forged signatures on documents tying her brother to one of our competitors. If this leaks—" "It won't," Woo Bin cut in, "because you're the one leaking it." Madame Song smiled thinly. "I protect this family. Even from itself." Chyna stepped forward. "I never asked for your protection. You'll need it when the board hears about this distraction during G-Min's critical time." Woo Bin's voice turned lethal. "Leave. Now." Madame Song looked between them, then at the ring on Chyna's finger. "You'll regret this," she said softly. She left. Chyna picked up the envelope. Inside, photos, bank statements, a letter from her brother offering to sell embarrassing family secrets to the highest bidder. She handed it to Woo Bin without a word. He took it, crushed it in his fist. Then he pulled her into his arms. Tight, fierce. "They don't get to touch you," he said against her hair. "Not anymore." She clung to him. Days passed. A call came at 4:42 a.m. Chinis jolted awake to the shrill ring of Woo Bin's phone on the nightstand between their rooms. She'd started sleeping with the connecting door cracked open since Ji Min's last scare. She heard Woo Bin answer in a low, controlled voice, then silence. Then a single word that sliced through the dark: no. She was already out of bed, barefoot, crossing the threshold when he switched on the lamp. His face was grey. "The donor heart," he said. "They rejected it. Paperwork error. Forged signature on the consent form. The family pulled out." Chinis felt the air leave her lungs. How? Someone convinced them the risk was too high, that the recipient's environment was unstable. His jaw worked. "My mother's signature is on the forged document. She denies it, of course." Chinis stared. She sabotaged her own grandson's chance. Not directly, through intermediaries. She thinks if Ji Min stays sick long enough, I'll see reason. Marry someone appropriate. Someone who won't threaten the family name. Chinis' hands curled into fists. "I'm going to be sick." Woo Bin reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't. Not right now." Ji Min's monitor alarm sounded down the hall. Sharp, insistent. They ran. The boy was sitting up in bed, clutching his chest, eyes wide with terror. "It hurts again, Daddy. It really hurts." Woo Bin scooped him up while Chinis grabbed the emergency kit. They were in the car within minutes, racing through pre-dawn Seoul toward the hospital. Ji Min's breathing grew labored, his skin clammy. By the time they reached the ER, he was barely conscious. Doctors swarmed. Monitors screamed. Chinis stood frozen in the doorway while Woo Bin held Ji Min's hand through the chaos. "He's decompensating," one cardiologist said. "We can stabilize him for now, but without a transplant soon." The words trailed off. Chinis slipped inside, took Ji Min's other hand. His fingers were cold. She started humming the lullaby her mother used to sing. Soft, wordless, the one that always calmed her when the house got too loud. Ji Min's eyelids fluttered. His grip tightened faintly. Woo Bin looked across the small body at her, eyes glassy. Hours blurred. Stabilized but fragile. Ji Min slept under heavy sedation. In the private waiting room, Woo Bin paced like a caged animal. Chinis sat with her arms wrapped around herself. He stopped in front of her. "This is my fault." "No. I let her get too close. I thought family meant loyalty." Chinis looked up. "She's not family. She's a shareholder with a surname." His laugh was bitter. "And your family?" "Your brother's been in contact with my biggest rival, Li Tang, the one who's been trying to tank our medical division for years. They're feeding him dirt on you, on us. They want the stock to dip so they can buy low." Chinis felt ice in her veins. "My brother would sell his own sister for a payout." Woo Bin crouched in front of her chair. "I should have seen it coming. I should have protected you better. You can't protect me from my own blood." His voice cracked. "I'm trying." She reached out, cupped his face. "You're carrying too much." He closed his eyes, leaned into her touch. "I lashed out at you yesterday in the hallway. I said you brought bad luck, that your family ties were cursing us." He remembered. The words had cut deep. "I didn't mean it," he whispered. "I was terrified and I took it out on the one person who's kept me from falling apart." Chinis' throat burned. It hurt. "I know." She pulled her hand away. "I need air." She walked out, down empty corridors, past nurses who nodded sympathetically, out to the rooftop garden the hospital reserved for VIP families. The city sprawled below, cold, glittering, indifferent. She cried there, quiet, furious sobs until her chest ached as much as Ji Min's must. When she returned, Woo Bin was still in the waiting room, alone. He stood when she entered. "I'm sorry," he said again. She crossed to him, stopped inches away. I'm not leaving him, she said. But I can't keep pretending this is just temporary. Not when every day feels like goodbye. He searched her face. Then don't pretend. She exhaled shakily. What does that mean? It means I love you. The words came out rough, like they'd been locked behind his ribs for months. I've loved you since the moment you ruffled Ji-min's hair and called him brave. I just didn't have the courage to say it until I almost lost you both. Chinis' breath hitched. He stepped closer. Stay. Not because of a fake ring. Not because of protection. Stay because you want to. Because we're already a family. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She nodded once. He kissed her. Slow, deep, tasting of salt and relief. When they pulled apart, his phone buzzed. Madam Song. He answered on speaker. Wu Bin. No more games. He cut in. You forged documents. You endangered my son. You're done. Wu Bin, listen. I'm filing for a restraining order. Effective immediately. If you come near this hospital, near my home, near either of them, I will ruin you. Publicly. Completely. Silence, then, softly, you would choose her over your own mother. I already have. He ended the call. Chinis stared at him. You just. I should have done it years ago. Ji-min stirred when they returned to his room. His eyes opened, cloudy but aware. Chinis, he whispered. I'm here, baby. Did you fight the bad guys? She smiled through tears. Your daddy did. And he won. Ji-min's gaze shifted to Wu Bin. Daddy, don't be mad at Chinis. She's my princess and you're my knight. Knights don't yell at princesses. Wu Bin's throat worked. I know, buddy. I'm sorry. Ji-min reached for both their hands. Promise you'll stay together even when I'm better. Chinis squeezed Wu Bin's fingers. We promise, she said. Ji-min smiled, small, tired, perfect. Then his eyes closed again. Later that afternoon, Chinis slipped out to confront her family one last time. She found her brother in a rundown bar near Itaewon, same place he always went when he needed liquid courage. He smirked when he saw her. Come to beg. No. She dropped a folder on the table. This is everything. Police reports. Bank transfers. The lawsuit you tried to file. Proof you've been working with Lee Tang to sabotage Song Group. I'm done. You come near me, near Ji-min, near Wu Bin again, and this goes to every news outlet in Korea. You'll be the story. Not me. He laughed, nervous. You think your rich boyfriend scares me? He doesn't have to. She leaned in. I do. She walked out. Her phone buzzed as she stepped into the street. New donor match flagged. International private flight leaving in 6 hours. She ran back to the hospital. Ji-min was awake, coloring weakly. Chinis showed him the text. His eyes lit up. Is it time? Almost, sweetheart. Wu Bin pulled her aside in the hallway. There's one complication, he said quietly. Lee Tang. He's threatening to go public with fabricated evidence tying you to corporate espionage unless I drop a major merger that would bankrupt him. Chinis stared. He's using me as leverage. Yes. She straightened. Then let him. Wu Bin frowned. Release everything we have on him and my brother. Let the world see what they've done. I'm not hiding anymore. Wu Bin studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I love you, he said. She kissed him, fierce, certain. I love you too. Outside, Seoul's skyline glittered like a promise. Inside, a small boy dreamed of tomorrow. And for the first time in years, Chinis believed tomorrow might actually come. The private jet sliced through storm clouds over the East Sea, turbulence rattling the cabin like loose change in a pocket. Chinis gripped the armrest, knuckles pale. Across the narrow aisle, Wu Bin held G-Minute against his chest. The boy's small body swaddled in blankets, oxygen mask fogging with each shallow breath. The donor heart waited in Busan, harvested from a tragic motorcycle accident in Japan and flown in under emergency protocols Wu Bin had personally negotiated. Every minute mattered. Ji-min's eyes fluttered open. "Are we there yet?" "Almost, sweetheart," Chinis whispered, reaching across to stroke his hair. "You're being so brave." He managed a weak smile. "Knights don't get scared." Wu Bin pressed a kiss to his son's forehead. "They do. They just keep going anyway." The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're hitting heavy weather. ETA 30 minutes, but visibility is dropping fast." Chinis met Wu Bin's gaze. Neither spoke the fear aloud. If they were diverted, if the heart degraded even slightly, if Ji-min's condition crashed mid-flight. Her phone vibrated. "Security team." She answered on speaker so Wu Bin could hear. "May, your brother just attempted to breach the mansion perimeter. Armed. He was carrying restraints and a demand note. Ransom for you. We have him in custody. Police en route." Chinis closed her eyes. "Is anyone hurt?" "No, but he was screaming about how you owe him a piece of the empire now. He mentioned Li Tang by name. Said the company promised him a cut if he got you out before the surgery." Wu Bin's expression turned lethal. "Tell the police everything. No deals, no bail, and double security on the hospital in Busan. No one gets near us." He ended the call. China stared at the floor. "My own brother tried to kidnap me." Wu Bin reached for her hand. "He won't touch you again." She pulled away, gently but firmly. "This is what happens when I stay. People get hurt. G-Minute gets sicker. Your company bleeds money fighting off attacks. I'm poison. You're not." "I am." Her voice cracked. "I should have left weeks ago, before the fake engagement, before I let myself believe." "Stop." Wu Bin unbuckled, crossed the aisle in 2 strides, and knelt in front of her seat. "Look at me." She did. Tears spilling over. "I have spent years building walls so high no one could hurt me or G-Minute again. Then you walked through them like they were paper. You didn't ask for anything. You gave everything. You sang to him when I couldn't find words. You held me when I couldn't breathe. If that's poison, then I've been dying of thirst my whole life." Chinis' sob broke free. He cupped her face. "I love you. Not the idea of you. Not what you could do for my image or my son. The woman who jokes with a dying child about marriage. The woman who stares down trillionaires and loan sharks without flinching. The woman I want to wake up to every morning for the rest of my life." The plane lurched violently. G-Minute whimpered. Chinis unbuckled and moved to his side, cradling his head. Wu Bin joined them, arms around both. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," Wu Bin said. "But we're in this together. All 3 of us." The landing in Busan was rough, tires screeching, rain sheeting across the tarmac. An ambulance waited, lights flashing. They transferred G-Minute straight to surgery prep. Chinis and Wu Bin followed in a separate car, security detail tight around them. In the sterile waiting room, time stretched into agony. Wu Bin paced. Chinis sat with her head in her hands. At hour 3, the lead surgeon emerged, scrubs blooded, mask pulled down. "The transplant is complete," he said. "The heart is functioning. We'll know more in the next 12 hours, but he's through the worst." Chinis burst into tears. Wu Bin pulled her into his arms so hard it hurt in the best way. They were allowed into recovery briefly. G-Minute looked impossibly small under tubes and monitors, but his color was already better. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm that hadn't existed in months. Chinis leaned over the bed rail, kissed his forehead. "You did it, brave knight." Wu Bin stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other resting over Ji Min's tiny one. A commotion in the hallway, raised voices, then silence. One of Wu Bin's lawyers appeared, face grim. "Sir, your ex-wife just filed an emergency custody motion. Claims your volatile new relationship and the recent kidnapping attempt prove an unsafe environment. She's citing Madam Song as a character witness. They want Ji Minute removed from your care the moment he's stable enough to transport." Wu Bin's hand tightened on Chinis' shoulder. Chinis straightened. She abandoned him once. She doesn't get to play savior now. The lawyer nodded. "We have evidence. Abandonment records, her communications with Madam Song. Proof she only resurfaced after news of the engagement and the company's stock surge. But the judge is old school. Family name carries weight." Wu Bin exhaled slowly. "Then we fight." Chinis turned to him. "No. We will end this." She walked past the lawyer, down the hall to the small conference room where the security team had set up. She opened her laptop, Wu Bin's gift, and pulled up the encrypted folder she'd started compiling weeks ago. Bank transfers, emails, recorded calls her brother had stupidly left unencrypted. Proof that the ex-wife had been in contact with Li Tang months before resurfacing, promising to destabilize Wu Bin's personal life in exchange for shares in a competing medical firm. Chinis handed the drive to the lawyer. "Leak it anonymously to every major outlet tonight." The lawyer hesitated. "This could destroy her publicly. And it'll drag the family name through the mud." "Good," Wu Bin said from the doorway. "She dragged my son's life through worse." By midnight, the story broke. Headlines screamed betrayal, greed, corporate conspiracy. Madam Song's name appeared in connection with forged medical documents. The ex-wife's carefully curated social media imploded under comments and shares. Custody motion withdrawn by morning. Madam Song called once. Wu Bin didn't answer. Chinis sat beside Ji Min's bed as dawn crept through the blinds. Wu Bin joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "You okay?" "No," she admitted. "But I will be." He kissed her temple. Later that afternoon, Ji Minute woke properly, groggy, sore, but smiling. "Did the bad guys go away?" he whispered. Chinis nodded. "They're gone." Ji Minute looked between them. "Are you still getting married for real?" Wu Bin laughed, soft, relieved. "We're working on it." Ji Minute yawned. "Good, because I want to be the ring bearer and throw flowers." Chinis' eyes filled again. Wu Bin squeezed her hand. 3 weeks after the transplant, Ji Minute walked slowly, proudly down the wide corridor of the private rehabilitation wing in Busan. No oxygen tank, no fur pole, just a small hand clutching Chinis on one side and Wu Bin's on the other. His steps were careful, deliberate, like he was testing whether the new heart would keep beating if he dared to move too fast. "Look," he said, grinning up at them. "I'm taller already." Chinis laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. "You're definitely growing. Must be all that hospital jello." Wu Bin's smile was softer, quieter. He hadn't stopped watching Ji Minute like the boy might vanish if he blinked too long. The doctors had cleared him for discharge that morning. Home. Real home, not the sterile hospital suite that had become their temporary universe. Back in Seoul, the mansion felt different, lighter. The security detail had been scaled back. The cameras still watched, but the air no longer tasted of threat. Madam Song had retreated to her Jeju estate after the media storm. Silent, humiliated, stripped of influence over the company board in a swift, bloodless coup Wu Bin orchestrated while Ji Minute slept through recovery. The ex-wife's custody claim evaporated under the weight of leaked evidence and public scorn. She disappeared from Seoul entirely, last seen boarding a flight to Singapore with a one-way ticket. Chinis stood in the garden that evening, barefoot on cool grass, watching G-Minute chase fireflies with a net made from an old pillowcase. Woo Bin came up behind her, arms sliding around her waist. "He's really okay," she whispered, as if saying it louder might jinx it. "He is." Woo Bin rested his chin on her shoulder. "Because of you." She turned in his arms. "Because of us." He kissed her, slow, deep, the kind of kiss that said everything words still stumbled over. When they parted, he didn't let go. "I have something for you," he murmured. She raised a brow. "Another ring." "Better." He led her inside to the formal living room, rarely used, always too grand. Tonight it was transformed. Fairy lights strung across the ceiling. A small table set for 3. G-Minute already there, wearing his favorite blue hoodie, bouncing on his toes. "Surprise!" he shouted. Chinis laughed. "What's all this?" G-Minute ran to a side table and picked up a velvet box. Too big for a ring, too small for anything practical. He thrust it at her with both hands. "Open it." Inside lay a thin platinum chain with 3 pendants. 1 emerald for G-Minute, 1 small diamond for her, and 1 black onyx for Woo Bin. Simple, interlocking. A family forged not by blood, but by choice. Chinis' throat closed. G-Minute tugged her sleeve. "Daddy said we're already a family, but he wants to make it forever, like in the books, with vows and cake and me throwing flowers." She looked at Woo Bin. He was already on one knee. No grand gesture, no audience, just him, vulnerable, certain, eyes locked on hers. "Chinis Willows," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I once thought love was a liability, something that could be taken away. Then a little boy dragged you out from behind a counter and asked you to marry him, and you said yes to protect him, to make him smile, to give him hope when I couldn't. You saved him. You saved me. I don't want a fake engagement or a temporary promise. I want forever, messy, beautiful, with bad days and hospital waits and fireflies in the garden. Marry me. For real. Please." Tears slipped down her cheeks. G-Minute whispered loudly to his dad, "She's supposed to say yes now." Chinis laughed through the tears. "Yes." Woo Bin exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. He rose, slipped the chain around her neck, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted of salt and promise. G-Minute cheered, throwing imaginary petals from his empty hands. 2 months later, under a late spring cherry blossom canopy in a private Hannam courtyard, they said their vows. Chinis wore white with emerald accents, simple flowing African print details woven into the hem as a quiet nod to her roots. Woo Bin in a black hanbok with subtle modern lines. G-Minute, ring bearer and flower boy in one, scattered petals with such enthusiasm that half ended up in his own hair. The ceremony blended traditions. A Korean bowing ritual, a hand-fasting cord in green and gold. Vows spoken in English and Korean. When the officiant asked if they took each other, G-Minute shouted, "They do," before either of them could answer, earning laughter from the small gathering. Trusted friends, loyal staff, no press, no rivals, no ghosts from the past. Afterward, at the reception under string lights, G-Minute tugged Chinis' dress. "Mom," he asked softly, testing the word like it might break. Her heart stuttered. She knelt. "Yeah, baby. Can I call you that for real?" She pulled him into her arms. "You already have been in here." She tapped his chest right over the new heart. "And now out here, too." He hugged her tight. "I love you, Mom. I love you, too, brave knight." Woo Bin watched from a few steps away, eye shining. Later, when the guests had gone and G-Minute was asleep upstairs with his stuffed dragon, Chinis and Woo Bin stood on the balcony overlooking the garden. She leaned against him. "We made it. We did." She looked up at the stars. "I used to think rich people only bought things. Turns out the richest thing you gave me was time. Safety. A family." He turned her to face him. And you gave me back my heart. Both of them. They kissed under the quiet soul sky. Slow, certain, eternal. Somewhere in the city, headlines had already moved on. Scandals faded. Empires shifted. But here in this small pocket of light, a waitress from nowhere and Korea's most feared CEO had built something unbreakable. A family. A future. A forever that started with 4 small words from a little boy hiding behind shelves. Marry me, Miss Chinese. And she had. Thanks for watching. Where are you all tuning in from today? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed the story. Your support means everything.